Hello, Mira. How are you?
Very well. I hope that you're safe and well and staying indoors.
Yes, that for sure. And since too long,
Yes.
I've been away from India, which I miss very much.
Well, we hope to have you back, in happier times. But I think let's just introduce ourselves. So, I'm Meera Gupta. I have a long background in working in craft, and today I'm speaking to Paola Manfredi, who's written the seminal book on chicken curry. And I'm delighted to be chatting to you today, Paula. And as it happens, I would have read the book anyway. When I understood that I was talking to you, but I was reading it. I mean, coincidentally, I was reading it all of last week and writing about it on social media. And and of course, the book is a complete history. It's a whole history of the craft, of the people, of the motifs, of the garments. It goes on. But I think what I loved most of all was the humanity of the book. The stories it tells about the people, about the men and women who practice it, the entire chain. And I think that's what makes the book very, very special and which makes it different from the other crafts books that I've read. So congratulations. So
Thank you
should we
so
start?
much.
Yeah. So I was
Yeah,
doing
thank
some
you so much,
reading.
Mira, for your kind
No,
words.
that's all right. So, I was doing some reading about your background, and I believe your background is in ethnology. So, what took
Yes.
you from ethnology to chicken curry? I mean, did you know about it when you lived in Europe?
Actually, no, I can't admit that I became acquainted with chicken curry much later. And I was involved and deeply interested in ethnology as because I've been always fascinated by the diversity of culture and societies, and deeply interested in the richness of different cultural heritage, and as a unique expression and and of humanity.
Right.
And I became involved with it because I felt that we should contribute to minimize the loss of such extraordinary cultural diversity, and especially the traditional culture that are most at risk of being swept away by the overwhelming political and economic forces and powers. And craft, and in particular traditional crafts, are among the most tangible manifestation of the intangible cultural heritage. And thus, the goal of preserving them and to ensure that the knowledge and the skill associated with the traditional artisanry are not lost, but are passed on to the future generation. And
Absolutely.
craftsmanship should continue to develop within the communities, providing livelihood to their makers and reflecting their cultural ethos, their creativity, and uniqueness. And if nothing else, one should at least try to record as much as possible of the different craft tradition and their cultural and social context, so that the knowledge, the ingenuity, the skill, and the artistry would not disappear forever. These are very fragile fields, and one generation gone might interrupt the flow of passing on the skill and the
The
secret
knowledge and
of
the
it.
skills.
And
Yes.
this. And so my book on chicken curry has been has been a project, a very long project. I mean, has gone through ups and downs, but basically intended to record this craft that is exquisite, or at least I was absolutely mesmerized by it when I first saw some pieces in India of chicken embroidery, of all chicken embroidery. And when I started working with artisans in Lucknow and ladies and needlecraft women, I realized that there was very little knowledge. I mean, there was knowledge of about how old this craft was, but there was not the actual experience of all pieces, of the different expression and stories and the evolution and the development of this craft. And I felt that it would be very important to document the history, to create visual archives that would become a reference for the artisan to refer to be inspired by, to be challenged also by the past expression of it. So when I came to India in the 80s, early 80s, I didn't know about chicken curry. I came.
How did you find it?
I came with a job. I tell you, I came with a job with an assignment of an Italian export garments company. And I accepted it because I was actually passionate about Indian traditional textile. I would say all of them, whether they were printed, embroidered, or woven. I had some experience of it during my studies, but I was not particularly, I was not deeply knowledgeable about. And I arrived in India at a time that was quite extraordinary, because it was the time of the Festival of India in the UK, in France, in the States. And there was an incredible creative impetus in the development of textile. That was, sorry?
No, I was agreeing with you. Yes.
And there were such incredible, great personalities like Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, Pupul Jayakar, Martin Singh, whom I've been very fortunate to meet and to interact with. And just to mention a few of many of those people involved with the reviving of those exquisite and original textile. And actually, and Mrs. Gandhi herself was also a supporter of this whole process. And the most fantastic style have been developed to be showcased around the world in very prestigious exhibition. And there is my epiphany, where I realized how, it was incredible, really fantastic. And it is at that time when I became acquainted with chicken curry. Originally, it was, till the early 80s, what you would find in the market was of quite average quality. It wasn't particularly fantastic. It's in 1986 that an organization called Seva Lucknow started a kind of cooperative with women to first of all to address a lot of problems that needlecraft women were facing in the industry like now, and lot of exploitation and very low wages. And Seva entered that field to try to address all these problems and to revive the most fine and refined tradition of chicken curry. So that's how I, in the middle of the 80s, I still remember when they first came to, you might remember too, when they were having their first exhibition and sale in Delhi. It was like a craze. People would rush to, the ladies would rush and, just fight over some of those exquisite pieces that suddenly were coming back.
People couldn't get enough.
Sorry?
There used to be queues outside. I do remember
Yes.
in the 80s.
I remember ladies fighting, over
Yes,
some
putting pieces from one another. So
yes,
did you find,
yes.
for some of our watchers who perhaps may not know what chicken curry is, I mean, do you think we should just talk about what it is? I mean, is it similar to European white work, like the Dresden embroidery, or Scotland? Is it part of that tradition of white work, or is it different?
Let's say yes. It is part of the traditional European white work, in the sense that there are certainly a few stitches that are common, but you see what chicken curry from Lucknow specifically is, it has developed a very original way of interpreting those stitches and the aesthetic that was, I mean, let's do one. Let's also mention that since the 17th century, in Bengal, there was a production for the West of white embroideries on very fine muslin. Bengal was very well known for the finest muslin available, and they became extremely fashionable in the West in the 17th century. And the trade with the coming of the East India companies from Europe, not only the British, but there were the Portuguese who came first, and the Dutch and the French. Everyone was in competition to get those very fine textiles, which had become a craze in the West, and therefore there has been a lot of interaction between East and West. Not only in embroidery, but in Bengal it was for muslin and embroidery work, while, for example, in other areas of India, like Gujarat or the Coromandel coast, were more printed or hand painted and dyed textile. So it was, but in Bengal there was this specialized craft, which had, was already very vibrant since all time, because there are again documents of trade with Arab traders and Armenian. So, I mean, Bengal seems to have been on the trade map of the world since very, very ancient time. Actually, even Rome was importing muslin from India through Egypt. So, I mean, there have probably been interruption and, some time. But so what I'm saying is that there have been, therefore, pattern books designed that came from Europe to produce embroidery in Bengal for the European market according to European taste. And certainly the lot of stitches and have been have come from there, but that it is not relevant in a way, because what is relevant is how then later on in Lucknow this wealth of techniques and technical knowledge has been reworked in a different vocabulary and different aesthetic that had become absolutely unique and as a marker of identity for Lucknow. Chicken curry is almost, an iconic for Lucknow refinement and Lucknow culture. And
yeah, tehzeeb, they're very mixed up with each other. The idea of Lucknow and the idea of chicken curry,
Yes.
So in fact, I'm going to ask you here because there are any number of very charming stories about how or where chicken curry started. I mean, did it start in Bengal, or did Noor Jahan, patronize it? Or there's this lovely story, which is my personal favorite, of this Begum from Murshidabad who embroidered a cap for her husband, and then all the other Begums were sort of vying for his attention. So, according to you, I mean, which of these narratives might be the most plausible?
Yes, there are, I mean, in Lucknow, there are many narratives. Some are more romanticized and the others are more scholarly, let's say, and based on some documents. However, the origin of chicken curry, as we know it today, the chicken curry from Lucknow, is quite mysterious. So we can piece together different fact and trying to get and trying to guess what could have been happening. Actually, so there is a very prestigious narrative that concern the Empress Jahangir wife, Noor Jahan, as the patron of this craft. Noor Jahan came from a aristocratic Persian family, with a very refined and cultivated background. She was known to be herself a very accomplished embroiderer and passionate about textile. Herself, when she became queen, she is reputed to have introduced many different style, dress code in the court of the Mughal emperor. And we have also reference of letters by the British ambassador asking London to send very, very fine embroidery work from England to be given as a present to Nurjan so that she would be favorable or be in favor of the British and give them trade facilities. Now, Nurjan, actually, she had a first husband, and who was Sheraf Khan, and and he was posted to Dhaka in Bengal for a few years, and was with him in Dhaka for a few years. And therefore, and it was a time where in Dhaka, production of embroidered muslin for the West was happening. And therefore, it is very much possible that she, liked and she realized the potential of this craft. And later on, when she became a widow, she married the Mughal emperor. So it's very possible that she, and let's not forget also that Dhaka was producing the finest muslin that was only for the Mughal emperor family. So it is very much possible that she played an important role in fostering the production of muslin, and being an embroiderer herself, worked with patterns and motif. And so Nurjan, he's a possibility. And she combines both the royal patronage as well as the Bengal side.
Connection.
There is, and the Bengal connection. Another narrative that you mentioned is a Begum from Murshidabad. Murshidabad was, he's in Bengal, was capital of one of the Bengal,
it was a huge, Nawabi center.
Yeah. Yes, and yes, and they had the Nawab of Bengal had close links with the Nawab of Lucknow, and therefore, and this lady was married to the Nawab, or one of the Nawab. We don't know who. We don't know the name of the lady nor the name of her husband, but. The legend or the story goes that she was one of the innumerable wives of the Nawab, and she was not getting enough attention from him, and she was getting bored. And the story goes that she embroidered a most beautiful cap for the husband with very, very fine embroidery. Now, it is a fact that from Murshidabad, we have a very antique specimen of extremely fine whitework embroideries. So again, it is a possibility that what the story has happened, and she managed to present her cap to the Nawab, who was so mesmerized by the beauty of this piece, and she became the favorite of him. And all the other ladies, jealous of this the Begum, they wanted to learn also, and the story goes that the old Zenana, the harem of became involved with production of very fine and embroidery. Now, the artisans have yet another interesting story. They say that actually the craft came to them. It is the descendant of the family of one of the most accomplished craft person, who said that there was a traveler who was extremely exhausted, and who came to Lucknow, and his ancestor rescued him and helped him, giving him milk and shelter, and food and shelter. And this traveler then taught him a craft, an art, as the story goes, that would never let his family go poor. I mean, that would never. And apparently, and he taught him the art of chikankari embroidery. So again, the traveler maybe was coming from Bengal, and he was coming to Lucknow, who had become by then a very important center for art and craft, and being the court of the Nawab, extremely luxurious and patronizing lot of arts and artists and craft and literature and music and dance, and therefore attracted a number of Indian but also foreigner artists and craft people who could then work in the workshop for the court and the aristocracy. So all these stories are, are different, and yet they have a converging feature, which also, they don't contradict each other. They are not mutually exclusive. And of course, the scholarly approach is that it came from Bengal, from what I sort of already said, that, as an outcome of the trade that had developed with Europe. And
yeah, these are all, they're parallel narratives, and they're not necessarily exclusive. But what occurs to me is that a lot of these narratives have to do with women, Noor Jahan, the Begum from Murshidabad. And from what I recall, at one point when the embroidery was done in karkhanas, it was done by men. But when the karkhanas disintegrated, the embroidery actually again went back to women, who would take it up as piecework, and it was a means of, earning a little extra money. So in a sense, the whole chikankari thing has been very tied up with the sort of female gender narrative, and it probably still is in Lucknow,
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is actually it is a topic that you can address from many different angles and approaches. And it is, first of all, there is a sort of competition between male and female craft people. It's a kind of gender polarity, and it is said that the work was far superior when was made by men and male artisan in royal or private karkhanas, and became ordinary and devalued when chicken became almost exclusively a female craft, which is quite a nonsense. First of all, because we know that since earlier records, women were involved in the production of some aspect of chikankari, like the jali work, the open work. And that it is sometimes mentioned that all the impoverished Muslim family and women were involved in piecework and working from home. But let's say that Lucknow to this day is a kind of hub for hand embroidery and of very high quality. And, from the time of the Nawab and then through the British colonial time, Lucknow has been a center for different style of embroidery. And there is a wealth of not only embroiderer, but also artisans who are working around it, designer, block makers, because one aspect and quite, unique to chikankari is the use of blocks on which the motif that has to be embroidered is carved, and then the block is used to transfer the tracing on the fabric, on the garments often. So the problem is that when chikankari went out of fashion, most probably around, the 20s or the 30s of last century, out of fashion for the elite. It lost some sort of glamorous side to it. And that's where female workforce and traders became the main actor and the main in that trade. And there has been throughout subsequently for about 50 years a deterioration in the quality of the work. But it also we have to say that there was the contradiction was also that contradiction. The fact is that because the women were paid much less, the work would be, of course, of much less quality. And to these days, all the other embroidery tradition like Ari, Zari, Zardozi, and Kamdani work that are three different main needlecraft of Lucknow are still done by men who works an average of 4 or 5 times more than a woman that does chikankari. Chikankari is produced more and more in the rural areas, banking on the fact that women are often little educated, they don't have other opportunities, and therefore they accept to work also for very meager wages. And in the interviews I had and the discussion I had in several occasions with women craft, with needlecraft women, they said, we are doing this to save money for our dowry, but once we get married, we don't want to do it anymore. So we have to understand that this craft is not necessarily done out of passion, out of an expression of identity. Of course, there are excellent, fantastic ladies embroiderers that are doing the most exquisite work. And they are doing it out of passion and out of, really, they love it. And they are the master craftsmen and extraordinary personality of it. But let's say the general production is often done by women who are doing this more out of need than out of passion, and to work And to do embroidery work is a very hard work, you know. It's difficult in terms of skill, but also in terms of eyes that are, you know, they work in rural area where the facilities and the light is not, you know, in the evening is not available. They work when they have finished their their other family obligation and so on. So, but you know, we have to. I mean, it's very complex, what I'm saying, and if you address it from the health point of view, if you address it from the economic point of view, you open up a lot of issues, and the paradox is that on one side you have chicken curry that is celebrated as the most exquisite, fantastic, which is, and on the other side, the tradition goes on through the, you know, thanks to these ladies who are not always very well treated and recognized for their skills and their work, and their contribute to the transmission of this craft.
In fact, that actually sort of brings me to my next question, which is, you know, no matter how hard the circumstances are in which they work, what they're actually producing is haute couture, and possibly the only haute couture embroidery of India. And I mean, and why I say that, and you've said it in your book, is because a chikankari garment is not just the embroidery. I mean, the entire garment is constructed like an haute couture garment, where even the seams, the turpai and the daraz are also finished with a form of embroidery. I mean, I'd love to hear what you think of this. You know, is there any other tradition in the world, any other embroidery tradition that is similar to chikankari in this aspect?
There have been. I would say that nowadays there aren't you know, that kind of white work for garments is produced maybe only in India. In the past, there have been tradition in Scotland, in Spain. I mean, there have been many traditions that developed white work to a very high level. Haute couture, yes. One thing I wanted one point I wanted to make in my book was that we always talk about chikankari as the embroidery, and it seems that it's only the embroidery. My point is that the fame and the enduring fame and the aura of legendary sophistication that surround this craft, it's not only in the embroidery work, however fine it is, but it is because we see it on a few surviving extraordinary sample of garments that have survived. Now, those garments were, first of all, very, very fine muslin, and the art of handling muslin was an art. They were, I mean, record of the time says that they would not last 3 washes. So you had those extraordinary masterpiece embroidered very, very beautifully and fine, but they would be destroyed in no time, and this aspect was taken as a a proof of the exclusiveness of them. The haute couture, in this case, it's because it was done from by hand, completely stitched by hand, with the most invisible stitches, and the embroidery work was combined with the stitches in such ways that sometimes you can't really make out.
Which is embroidery, which is stitch, yeah.
Yes, and it was done with incredible artistry, and unfortunately, it's because of the delicate material, we have very, very few samples that have survived in India, because also the weather is not always conducive.
Yes.
Yes.
We repurpose things a lot in India. Yeah.
Yes. And yes, that's a pity. And so that's what I try to explain. Now, I would say that in India you have a few more other extraordinary embroidery tradition, because the Zari Zardozi is beautiful. Some of the Kamdani work is out of this world, the Ari work, not to mention the Amblikar shawl from Kashmir, which are being being revived, and they are I mean, the craftsmanship, it's really extraordinary. And in the past, you had royal or workshops producing for the elite, or private workshop producing for the elite. Nowadays, this system has declined, and yet there are new forms of it. You have Indian designers who have taken chikankari to a new level. I mean, different from what it was, because the characteristic, I would say, of the old chikankari is it was an extremely refined, understated finesse and flawless execution and combination of the embroidery with the pattern. Now the taste, it's more towards an opulence and ostentation of workmanship, and it's really quite an opposite. But
it's not muslin or cotton that is being embroidered on.
It is often silk, because the sheerness of the fabric, it's an important component of in chikankari, because it really makes stand out the different effect. The combination of different stitches that would create opaque spaces and areas, and other that are open works, and other with raised stitches. And it is and the real artistry is also not only in the execution, like my friend Judy Frater says, it's not that a good handwriting is a guarantee for good literature.
Yes.
And needlework, you can be a very accomplished needlecraft woman, but you need to have the sensibility to combine and to harmonize and to balance out the different texture that those many stitches that are part of chikankari vocabulary can create. And it is quite. And we have, therefore, a few Indian designers who have have looked at chicken. First, there was Ritu Kumar, who in the 80s, late 80s, through and got, Seva to produce some stunning sample that went on the ramp in one of her fashion show. She was soon followed by Abujani and Sandeep Khosla, who are still doing
the
most legendary kind of work. Never enough pieces to satisfy the demand. That's what they told me. And these designers actually have recreated in a way the system of Karkhana, if I may say, although it's not their own. What their production happen in very closed and secretive spaces. And no matter how friendly I'm with them, I haven't been able to enter. I mean, I could see their sample, but not the production. And another, I mean, there have been many other designers who too long to name, all of them.
Raw Mango did a lovely collection a few years
Sorry?
ago. Raw Mango had done a lovely
Yes, Raw Mango done a beautiful collection, and one of my favorite, because it's quite transgressive and provocative, is some of the chicken curry work that has been developed by Rajesh Pratap Singh, which and very unusual and very different, really cutting edge. But
it's very edgy. I love his interpretation of chicken curry.
Yes, absolutely. So that make me think that there is, that we will have many more surprises from designer and craft women combined to carry on with this tradition. There will be, more commercial one that will be done in more ordinary kind of and fast kind of work. But the Indian market, forget the international market, but the Indian market seems to still be very, how can I say, very, to care so much for chicken curry. And they will not be trade, and it will, they will keep asking for it, and because I mean, craft people need to sell their work. It's not that a tradition happen and continue in the world. It has to have also a market, to have patron, and to be able to develop and to be able to respond to the lifestyle and of their client. And so it's, I mean, there are many problems, but hopefully when hopefully this terrible COVID pandemic will be over, because I mean, at the moment the market is very down, and there are problems in Lucknow because of yes. So let's hope that this craft will not be penalized too much, and there will be. But there are also unfortunately, machine-made copies, mainly from China, and some unscrupulous traders are selling that, which is very, very sad. But anyway,
that's very, I didn't know about this. That's very, very sad and very unfortunate.
Yes,
it's like
absolutely.
false brocades, which are being passed off. But that's everywhere, So,
yes, yes. And therefore, we need, and it's one more aim of my book, we need also to educate the consumer, to explain, first of all, the background. Actually, I felt that it was important, first of all, for the craft women to understand their own background, the background of their craft, to gather also a sense of pride and a sense of belonging to a lineage of very, very special kind of craft. Hello? Sorry, can you say it again? I couldn't hear you.
I said that the pride of belonging to an extremely long craft tradition,
Yes, and to draw from the origin and the history of it, the new inspiration, and and therefore my at the moment what I also am involved with is to try to map around the world sample of beautiful chicken curry that is housed in a public and private collection. There are many museums who have some exquisite sample. Now, we have also I like to stress on the fact that it is extremely important to provide archives, and since now the technology facilitate us with that, to provide archives, visual archives for the artisan to be acquainted and to understand and to learn about the history, the long history, but also to see the technical, solution that happened in the past and how the work has been done. I think it's very important. So I'm trying to map in a way where all those beautiful pieces that in the last decades of last century have been sold and dispersed across the world, so that we can, okay, we can't get it back in India, but at least we know where they are, and maybe we can see them at least in some high definition digital form.
No, that's a wonderful idea, and extremely necessary. So you were saying something about stitches. I remember you spoke about stitches about 5 minutes ago. So every time I speak about chicken curry to people, the first question always is how many stitches, So some very ambitious people say 70. I mean, some say 50. I think the number is actually around 30. And I was speaking to somebody the other day who said, actually, there are only 6. And, so I think this is something that everyone wants answered, and I mean, what's your view on this?
My view is that when I started working with Seva, the first thing I did was asking one of the most accomplished needlecraft women to do a sampler for me of all the different stitches that she could make. And she did it. And on that piece, there are 33 different stitches. Stitches means there are some basic stitches, and there are different open work, kind of open work with different effect. And there are quite a few what I call compound stitches. Now, that means that are a combination of two or more basic stitches that are combined together in a sort of standardized way, and that have become a stitch in themselves, and they are known as. So that's where now the the number of stitches has always been also an argument to promote chicken curry as an extremely intricate craft and craftsmanship, and which is correct. I mean, and certainly when you look at all the, I mean, sample mainly made by master crafts person who got state awards or national awards, you see a variety of texture that are created out of virtuosity to show how skilled and how technically accomplished they were. They are not always really workable in a more commercial situation. There is, for example, what they call enoki chicken, which is the embroidery. It's only on one side of the very fine cloth, and the reverse doesn't show any stitch that has, completely gone into. So that's, but I try to make a list. I try to understand which was what and how. Now, there are different groups in Lucknow that come from different lineages. And actually, I realized that, first of all, it was not my role to try to standardize or to make a definite list of stitches, because I'm an outsider and I'm a nobody, and therefore it is not my craft. And so even in my description, I try to leave, to try to be definite about, and thinking, first of all, that there will be maybe more technical virtuosities that will be developed in future. But even the names sometimes are different. When you try to place, to name the different effect in open work, that's it's maddening, because you can't make, there are so many names, and sometimes they really, so it was quite an adventure also, just to go through the stitches part of it. But they are, I don't know if I answer your question.
No, you did. Of course you did. So I think we're running out of time, Paola. So
okay.
I wanted to ask you one last question, which is, I believe you've been doing a lot of work on Kantha recently, so can we expect another book, or can we bring you back to India, when times are better? It would be wonderful to see a book on Kantha from your point of view.
Thank you. That's I worked with Kantha mainly during 4 years while I lived in Bangladesh, and there are aspects of that craft that are very very interesting, and but at the moment, you see, I've been, after completing the book, I've been I've been back in Lucknow, and I spend most of my time in Lucknow, working with artisans on some special project. I'm not involved with commercial production or very marginally, but I work on some special project that for exhibition, to create pieces for exhibition or for some special event. Working both with chicken curry as well as with the Ari work, and so I think I will. I don't know. I mean, to think of another book is a big, big commitment. I mean, but who knows? Let's see when I have enough material. As I'm saying, I'm also keen to. There is another aspect of chicken. Chicken was a term. It's a Persian word, and it has in the colonial literature describing different products from India. It is used not only for Lucknow and the embroidery from Lucknow, although it is said that the one produced in Lucknow is the exceptional. But they say chicken was produced in different places like Quetta, Peshawar, Bhopal, Chennai, Calcutta. And somehow I'm intrigued about finding out which kind of chicken was produced in those different places. I've seen some in Pakistan a few years ago, while I had the opportunity to visit Hyderabad in Sindh, and quite different, but very interesting. So who knows what will come next?
But that sounds very hopeful. I mean, we'll see another book on
and maybe Kanta also.
It was wonderful to talk to you, Paola. I mean, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you for taking out the time. I've learned so much through this chat.
Thank you to you, and thank you to Nyogi, and hopefully we'll meet in person in India, or if you come to Italy.
Yes, I look forward to that, inshallah.
Yes, me too.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay, bye. Thank you so much.